Hi, welcome to Anything Goes. I'm your 5-wing-4 host, Madison.
And I'm your 9-wing-1 host, Caden. And
Um,
we're back, 2021,
whoop whoop.
2020 part 2.
Honestly, it's shaping up to be that way. So let's jump into some announcements. First of all, for this episode, I am really sick. So if my voice cracks or gives out or sounds weird, that might be why. I went to the doctor. They're not sure if I have strep or COVID or just some other virus causing tonsillitis, but my tonsils are hella swollen, and I don't know how long my voice is going to last for this recording.
I'll try to do more talking. I don't know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah. Also, I will be taking periodic drink breaks, and if you hear those, I'm sorry. I will try and edit the sounds out as best as I
You can
can.
add a Baby Yoda meme and just put your face on, with the Baby Yoda sipping meme.
Yeah.
That's
Just think of it as ASMR, guys.
It's the one for this episode.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of episodes, our Type 8 episode has been experiencing some technical difficulties. There's some wonky stuff that happened with the audio during upload.
Mm-hmm.
Got corrupted. So we're working on re-recording it and fixing that. And then we're going to go through the other episodes just to make sure that that's not an issue.
Yeah, I know everything before Type 8 was fine. But yeah, I don't KJ has listened to all of those, so they should be fine. I'm trying to see. I don't know why I know this got views. So if something happens and you're like, "Oh, this episode is weird," can please tweet at us or email us, please?
Yeah.
Please,
I mean,
because
90% chance it's weird because there's an audio corruption issue, and then 10% chance it's weird just because we're weird.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Type 8 got 151 views so far. So 151 of you. This is one of our highest, it's not our highest viewed, but it's one of our highest viewed episodes.
Maybe that's why. Maybe we just we found our market, our niche market.
But no one said anything, and KJ was listening to it on a drive home and was like, "Hey, did you guys know?" So I don't know if it was just always bad or if something happened or what, because we didn't. I don't know. I can't find an uncorrupted file on my computer, so I assume what happened is when I went to export it to upload it, that file that I exported out of my audio editor got corrupted there. And then that one got uploaded because it was fine in the editing software. I could listen to it all the way through, but now there are just huge chunks of audio where it just goes blank and you can't hear anything. It just completely cuts out. So I assume,
this reminds me of, at one time when I was a kid coming to visit family here, we went and saw my aunt who really likes Star Trek. And so she had just gotten a new Star Trek with what's his face? Chris, one of the Chris's. Kurt. Chris Pratt. Was Chris Pratt in, no?
Wait, what?
Chris Pratt wasn't in Star Trek? Who was the guy in the new Star Treks they just did?
Chris. Oh shoot, I know who you're talking about.
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine, yes.
Chris Pine Star Trek. That took way too long. Okay, but the Chris Pine Star Trek, we were watching it, and we got through the introduction, and they got onto the ship, and then it skipped, and it went all the way to the end of the movie, and we were just like, "That's really strange. I think your CD is broken." And or the DVD. It's not a CD, it's a DVD. "I think your DVD is broken." And she's like, "No, no, no. This is how it's supposed to be because there's wormholes and time travel." And we sat through that entire movie, and it skipped just about every half an hour. It would change a spot in the movie.
I haven't seen that movie enough to know if that's correct or not. Like if
It's
it
not
is.
correct. It's not how it's supposed to go. It was a really interesting way to see that movie for the first time. Like if you don't go see it in theater and you get it and it's brand new and you're just like, well, I guess this is an interesting editing choice.
Okay. But yeah. Oh, and so speaking of like episode software and stuff being wrong, we are changing over for the new year. We're trying some new stuff, trying to improve our audio some more. We've done more tests recently, and like we tried Zoom, which we didn't try before because neither of us, well, I don't know about Caden, but I did not have the paid subscription for it. And
I definitely
so
don't.
yeah, this is gonna time us out after a little bit. I think it's like 30 or 40 minutes. And so we're gonna have to like stop, start a new session, and then jump back into the recording. So that might cause some issues. I also got an equipment upgrade for Christmas. My girlfriend bought me a microphone and like splitter setup. So I'm using that microphone now. We did some tests. It did sound pretty good. So if you want to give us some feedback on like how our new audio sounds, that would be really appreciated because this is more about like what you guys want. If you think our old system of recording the Skype video works better, you didn't really mind, or if you don't really like the interrupted, like, oh, we're gonna switch calls and stuff, which I'm gonna try and edit that as smoothly as possible. So just give us some updates on that. New year, new equipment. Same old me though.
Mm-hmm. Well, other sort of announcement things, our general warnings still apply. Not safe for work. Maybe you want to listen with your headphones on. If you are at work, we do curse. We have an entire section where we discuss sex. Um, not
Actually, that's
Christian.
over for this one. We don't have.
That's true.
Though I'm sure with the Body Triad it'll come up.
I'm sure. You just got me that nice book.
I know.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
We're not Christian. We're very gay, and we are not trained in anything at all.
Mm-hmm. Working towards it. Or at
Working,
least I
well,
am. I don't know
you
if you
are.
are.
I'm working towards actually reading any of the like 5 books I have in front of me.
I just keep sending you them for Christmas.
It's great. I mean, I told you when we got on the call, like, oh, I'm so excited about this new book. I got into it, but in reality, I have unfortunately overscheduled my life,
Mm-hmm.
and given myself in my time away to other people, and so now no longer have things to
Yeah.
for myself, like book reading.
Mm-hmm.
Hit us up on our Patreon. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. We have a couple different tiers. The first tier is $5. And I forget what I named them. I don't remember.
You can go to our Patreon and find out what their name.
Yeah. That'll be linked in our show notes. But yeah, so the first tier is $5. It doesn't get you much. I can't remember any of this.
You're not doing a great job of selling this.
I'm not. I'm
Here.
sorry, guys.
If you enjoy our show and you want to support our podcast hosting, the $5 tier will help cover things like books and hosting. And then I think there's also another tier that'll also help cover those things.
Yeah.
And if you really love us, you can give us a bunch of money to buy the Secret Cult book.
Yes. It's all explained on our Patreon, which we will be linked. So far, we have 0 active patrons and $0 per month.
Okay.
So, help someone. Someone give money, please.
If you don't want to give us money and you just want to give us criticism, feel free to shoot us a message at our email at EnneathingGoes at gmail.com or our Twitter at EnneathingGoes. Also, we post a lot of stuff on Reddit now. I guess you do a lot of Reddit posts.
I have been doing some Reddit posts. The thing is, I've been posting them in the
The questions.
general Enneagram subreddit because that tends to get me the most answers. So we don't actually have
Got
our own subreddit,
no. We have a
but just
Discord.
we do, and that
Do
is also pretty dry.
no one goes there either. If you are very interested, you could hop on Reddit and see if you can find out which ones are our questions.
Yeah, I can
Like
tell you,
choosing.
my username is Maddie Monroe. So you can find me there. Anything posted by Maddie Monroe is me. I wonder if I can tweet out the links to my questions.
Oh, maybe.
I
That'd be
can,
interesting.
yeah, I can try doing that, and we'll see. But yeah. So speaking of Redditors responding to us, our question of the month. How'd you like that? That was smooth, right? Smooth
Yeah, I
transition.
do think we're getting better at this, maybe, eventually. Slowly but slowly. Our question of the month is, if you could detach any body part, what would it be? And this is asking specifically people in the body triad. So as a reminder, that's ones, nines, and eights.
Mm-hmm. So the responses we got were mainly from our Redditors. So starting with the type ones were big mad at this question. Every single one of them seemed irritated that I was even asking it. Like they were mad. Like a quote from
I'm perfect. Why would I want to do that?
yeah, but I don't know if they just thought that this was not the like subreddit to be posting it, or if they were just mad at the question. I'm not sure, but like quote, I have a 9-wing-1 quote here. I am confused as to why this is a question. Also, is it if we could or if we had to? If I could, the answer would be none of them. Big mad. Big, but like you can see, it's the like internalized anger of like, why is this a question? This is not. So they were very mad about it. Even though I took the time to explain, like in my question, I was like, this is for a podcast. It's just a fun question to get ones, nines, and eights to think about their body and how they relate to it. Like I explained why it's a question. I also said if you could, and it left it specifically vague. So, and I explained that I left it specifically vague to see how each type thought and conceptualized the question. But the ones were just like, nah, why are you asking? They were so mad. They did not like it. They were very angry. I did get a nice 1-wing 2, and I think it was that 2-wing softening them up, which they did consider the possibility of being able to like still use it. And if they could still use the body part when it was detached, they were a little more receptive. But yeah, eights were so enthusiastic. They loved this question. I got the most positive responses from eights. And the reason being is they were like, they all went to the if I can detach it and still use it kind of phase. And they were big excited about that because they were like, look at all the things that I can control. So like an 8-wing 7 said, is it like Bluetooth usable? If so, for sure an ear. Leave it somewhere discreet and eavesdrop. Totally cool. So 8s were hyped. They were ready to just be able to detach a body part. One was a mother who wanted to be able to like leave her arm so that it would like cook for her while she took care of the kids, or like, like could just leave her arm to like go do something while she did something with the kids and stuff. Yeah. So nines weren't as mad as the ones. They were a little more receptive, but they also did not want to lose a body part. So most of the nines mainly chose to like detach something that they thought would be easiest to live without. 1-9 said he would be fine detaching his foot because he thinks that the prosthetics would make stuff easy enough to like get around, and he mainly works with his hands, so he's like, yeah. Someone said a pinky toe, trying to basically just get out of like it as much as possible. But there was one nine that gave a really interesting answer, which was they asked if it was literally detaching the part or just ignoring the needs of said part. And was hella excited if it was just like ignoring the needs of some parts, which we will get into because that's a very nine thing with their
That would be great.
yeah, and that's a very like nine disengaged from their body kind of thing, which we will get into a little later. So Caden, as a nine.
My 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about this, and there's an obvious answer being trans. You know, I have a very interesting relationship with
that was
my
another
body.
thing, but yeah.
But I honestly, okay, and this is going to be like a little bit of a like personal share out here, but part of the reason why it took me so long to like come out, and as soon as I came out to myself, I came out to everyone else too, because I'm like, why hide that kind of stuff? I'm not fussed about that. Is that I don't actually hate my body. And there's so many narratives about, so intellectually there's like two different terms that people use to talk about discomfort with their body, right? There's dysphoria and there's dysmorphia, and lots of people have dysmorphia, right? It's the idea that like you are uncomfortable with the part of your body, and dysphoria is specifically tied to like gender and identity, that kind of stuff, that kind of discomfort. And people talk about being trans in gender identity in terms of dysphoria, and that, oh, well, you know that you're trans, or you know that you're not the same gender as what you were assigned at birth because you don't like your body. You don't like things about yourself. You don't like things about the roles that you're given, right? And I didn't feel that way about my own body. In fact, I like spent a lot of my childhood trying to actively cultivate a sense of, I don't know, I'm so disconnected from it that I don't want to fuck up that relationship, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the obvious answer is I'm going to have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to transition medically. And if, you know, they could just take my chesticles right now for free, I would definitely do that. But also on an emotional, intellectual level, the idea of it just happening and not having like control over the process is what I'd be worried about. Because I am actually very particular about how I want my body to be and what I want to do with it, and how I feel about it. Like, I'm not gonna say fuck you.
We did. Yeah, that was very interesting because it did lead me to. So some other types did chime in because I was like, if you're another type, please chime in because we can have some comparisons in there. And I believe it was a type 6. I can't remember, but they were ace. And they were like, I just kind of don't really need my genitals. I just kind of would prefer it like if they were just gone. So like I would definitely detach my genitals. And that made me think of when you brought up the trans stuff. Like I definitely think it would probably be like if there were some ace 1s, 8s, or 9s, maybe some genitals get thrown in there more easily. I'm not sure. And then I'm gonna mention my favorite response that I got, even though it has nothing to do with the 1s, 8s, or 9s. And it was a response from a 7. And they were like, oh my god, it was so funny. They were like, I guess I would do a pinky toe, but if I could and this was allowed, I would detach an organ that like I didn't need, or a portion of an organ that I didn't need, and I would sell it on the black market. And I was like, that's my favorite. You win. 7s immediately went to, how can this benefit me the most? I'm gonna sell body parts. That's gonna be my shit.
Yeah, you know, small business owners, 7s.
Yeah, that was my favorite. I think they said spleen or something. I would sell my spleen. It's just like, oh my god, when that came
One
in,
of my kidneys.
Yeah, I was cackling. But yeah, so I think I would like to believe that that's where a lot of the sevens minds went. I am
Well,
not
let
sure.
me ask. Hey,
Mhm.
Ben, if you could detach any body part, what would it be? She's looking at me like I'm crazy.
No,
The answer is no.
I would not have to. No.
The answer
I want
is
these to stay where they are.
she wants them to stay. So it's a big no from sevens,
It's a big no from sevens.
except for the one who wanted to sell his kidney on the black market.
Okay, I can see that, but that's not really what I know.
Mhm.
I don't think I would want to do that.
More of the head types went along with the if I could still use it, I would do it. Like as a 5, my mind immediately went to like I would want to be able to detach an arm and still use it and be able to like reattach it, you know? Because I'm so short that if I could just detach my arm real quick and like I could use it as like one of those like reachy things. Like I was in the store the other day and I didn't have KJ with me and she's so tall and so it makes things better and I couldn't reach this one thing and so I literally climbed into the like freezer that I was getting it out of and climbed up onto the first shelf and reached back and got the thing that I was trying to reach on the top shelf and I was very embarrassed but I was like I can't ask anyone for help. I'm doing this myself. Because as a 5, I don't want that interaction.
That's why 8s and 5s are all about just
Yeah.
self-reliance.
Yeah. But yeah,
Sixes wouldn't mind, I don't think.
yeah, I don't 6s were just kind of like I don't know.
Eh.
I don't yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
so let's
that's a big
move
intro.
on. Yeah, it was very long. All right. So this next year, because we only do one episode a month, is all going to be about triads. And so there are several different types of triads, and a triad is basically a group of 3 Enneagram types that share a common behavior, coping mechanism, tendency, etc. And so there's like the intelligence centers, which is where we're starting with. There's the harmonics, which is, you know, how you deal with conflict / how you deal with problems. There's the Hornevian group. There's object relations. I think that's the
There's apparently a love triad.
Yes,
so I was reading in this new book you got me.
Yeah, so there are a bunch of different triads, and as you see them, they're very helpful, especially if you don't know what type you are. Because what you can do is you can say, I'm kind of torn between these 2 types. So let's go in and you can be like, oh, I'm a head type and I'm also in the competency group of the harmonics triad. So that falls into type 5 and it doesn't fall into type 8. So I'm a type 5 as opposed to the type 8, even though I had a strong connection to type 8. And it can kind of help you figure out what your type is. It can also help you recognize your behavior and your motivations, and you can pick up on behavioral patterns in the moment when certain things are happening, especially something like the harmonics, which is like your problem solving and your conflict resolution. And you can see like, oh, this person's this type and they're trying to solve the problem this way and I'm trying to solve the problem this way, and that's why we're not getting along well. So let me take a breath, look at it from their perspective, you know, go in and just kind of like work the situation out. So it's very useful in helping you become aware of those behaviors and helping you learn to kind of fix some of those. But yeah, so let's see. This this episode and our next 2 episodes are going to focus on the intelligence centers. And so this episode is going to be body and anger, but our other intelligence centers are heart and shame and head and fear. And so everyone has access to each of the centers, and that's going to be the same for like every single triad. Everyone has access to the 3 different types of behaviors or 3 different things that you're going through, but one is your base type. It's the one that you lean on, it's the one that you use the most, and you can achieve growth by reaching into and forming the other 2 in the triad.
Right.
So
and also thinking about like in the interconnectedness of it, uh, we talk about, I think, integration and disintegration, or
Mm-hmm.
like growth and stress, or
Mm-hmm.
stretch and release, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that gives you access to more numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that you access a lot. And a lot of times those are going to be reaching across out into different triads.
Mm-hmm.
So for, our body triad stuff, the eights are going to be going to their head in stress and their heart in growth. Nines are doing the same. Ones are going to their heart in stress and their head in growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all kind of moving around through these.
Mm-hmm. And how you connect to them is different. So like the eights and the ones are very nice here, but something like a 5, we go to our head and stress because we just retreat further in, but then we go into our body and growth and we can actually overcome that. But we need to focus on developing our forewing to actually get some of the heart stuff. So
Yeah.
depending on what type you are, you need to kind of like look and see around you and see what numbers go to where to kind of develop that. It's also what makes the 3, 6, and the 9 kind of a triad of death, which we're going to get into a little bit more.
Triad of death.
Yeah, which we'll get into when we start talking about the 9s. I put that
Yeah.
section down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this week, or not this week, this month's episode is going to
Body
be
and anger.
Yeah. So, this kind of triad is based on movement, sensations, and awareness. And it's also commonly known as like the gut triad because this group kind of focuses on their gut instinct and their gut knowledge and stuff. So their focus is on personal security, control, social belonging, and taking the right action. Also known as the instinctual center, which I'm going to get into some of the like there are other names for it called the center of expression and the centers of structure, but they're all basically the same thing. They just kind of focus on different stuff. So I have another quote about the body center, which is the common emotion for the body center is anger. The anger comes from the instinctual response to the sense of feeling interfered or messed with. Our unconscious fear of unity is that we will lose ourselves, our sense of functioning, and intactness. The body center types want autonomy and are concerned with control of their environment. So this was very interesting to me because I know 8s are very control oriented, but I didn't really see it for type 9s and 1s until this kind of brought it up. So what do you think about that?
I'm sort of processing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the body, like the idea of being a body type for a really long time didn't stick with me in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's maybe also like a 9 thing, and I'm still kind of formulating some thoughts here, but about the idea of in contrast with like the heart or feelings and the head or fear, like those culturally are very easy to grasp for me, like those concepts of being connected as part of your individual and your person. But the body as being a part of that isn't, I think, something that we talk as much about
Mm-hmm.
just through in our everyday lives. There's this idea, and maybe it's a sort of American thing because that's where we are, our cultural conceptions. But this idea that your body is something that you have and not something that you are, but then it, and maybe this is part of me being a body type, but the idea of something like I can kind of separate myself out from the idea that like I have and I experience emotions, and I have and I experience fear, and those are separate interactions and separate entities. But for me, the body thing is just like you can't you know? Like,
So
it's hard to imagine that as a center, and because it's the idea then that, like, isn't everyone in that center? And maybe this is me being self-absorbed and, like, living through my own experiences, but, like, how do you not, and that's what I just didn't get. Didn't get the body as a thing.
hmm So it's very interesting that you phrase it that way. And like, we are our bodies. As a head type, I am very much not my body. Like, there's a distinct difference for me of like, the way I kind of view my body is that I am a person that's in my head, and like my body is just kind of the shell that I'm inhabiting. And that's just kind of how I view my body. And I view my body as not really being me. And I feel like when you say something like that, people see, I've said stuff like that before, and people have been quick to be like, are you trans or something? Looping back to our other, because that seems like something that's very like you said, that seems like something that would be associated or is generally associated with transness and body dysmorphia or body dysphoria, but it's not that. It's not even disassociation. It's more like what I perceive as who I am / what I am is kind of my mind and my headspace. And it's very much for me, it's I think, therefore I am. And this shell is just what I inhabit. And I'd be very interested to talk to like people in the heart triad, because I
Mhm.
wonder if they feel the same way, but only about their like feelings and stuff,
Right.
you know? And it's very interesting because like I wasn't relating to really anything that you said there.
Yeah. I'm maybe that's just the body stuff coming through. It's kind of
hmm
hard to think
hmm
about how you think about yourself,
hmm
um, in a really objective way.
Yeah.
Objectivity is a lie. But um, I guess for me, it's just like when I think about the connecting thread with the eights, nines, and ones and what that means, um, I think about the they're seeking like autonomy,
hmm
and you're seeking like a a distance and a separateness for yourself, because you're so in your body is a discrete unit, you know?
hmm
Like your body has a distinct end, right?
hmm
And for thoughts and for emotions, they're not necessarily as clear cut,
hmm
you know?
Yeah.
Like when you put something that is so uh uh like partitioned, I don't even know how I'm describing this. It makes sense in my brain, but it's really hard to like explain how I'm thinking about this. Essentially, the idea that like your body is definable in a way that your thoughts as thoughts inside your brain and your feelings as emotions inside of your heart are not.
hmm
And so then those boundaries are much more important.
Mm. I love the limitlessness though. I feel like maybe that's why, but maybe I'd feel too constrained if I were just limited to my body, I guess. Maybe that's disintegration to 7. I don't know. I don't know.
I think part of the issue with the body stuff though, right, is
hmm
that that focus on autonomy and separating yourself from others
hmm
is an attempt, at least for me, to gain um I don't just come back to me on this. I'm like I don't know why I can't speak today. I'm having so many issues. I should have written stuff down beforehand or something. Because
Yeah. Okay, I'll move on. I have
let's
another
move on.
quote about the body triad in general, which is Quote, at some point in their development, 8, 9s, and 1s feel that they have lost these essential qualities, that they have no sense of self, and that they cannot assert their wants. Being unable to express themselves leads to an underlying feeling of rage. To compensate, the personality tries to create and maintain a sense of self, where they are free to influence the world, but not be influenced by it. Consequently, the types in the body center are motivated to find ways to feel autonomous and independent. One way to feel a sense of self is to carry tension in our bodies. Another is to create boundaries around us. Unfortunately, when 8s, 9s, and 1s do not get the autonomy that they seek, their underlying feelings of rage rise up. They may become aggressive, in a way proving their independence. They may become resistant to change, again, to bolster their feelings of autonomy.
And this is the thing I was talking about the being a body, right?
Yeah.
You are a body. Whereas like being a body interacting with the world, there's no inherent like quality to that beyond the physical. But so much of our life is it takes place not in those physical tangible realities, right? And I don't know. I don't know if I really actually added to that conversation at all. That discussion.
I think you did. I think you brought up some points, especially in the way you phrase things. And the like, you are a body in this world, and it's like I'm 9, 1s, 9s, and 8s, I feel like probably conceptualize themselves like that. And I feel like people in the head and heart type probably don't. So it's a nice look into that.
Yeah.
So I have some other notes. Center of expression, which is what I said one of the other names for like the intelligence center is. They're all basically the intelligence center, but some places break it down a little bit more. And so if it does get broken down, the intelligence center is specifically body, head, or heart. It doesn't really have much to do with like the anger, shame, or fear. But if you talk about centers of expression, this is kind of where more of that anger portion comes into. And some kind of rephrase it as to the energy you put out. And so some rephrase this center from anger to action oriented. But it's basically the same thing. It's just how you kind of break it down. There's also the centers of structure, which is another way that this can get broken down. And this is so even when you go and like read up on this, this center can kind of cause confusion and isn't generally taught a lot. And the reason being is there's still a lot of no one really agreeing much. And this is also where tri-types kind of came from. It's kind of its root. And so tri-types are very divisive still within the Enneagram community. And I think that's also egged on by the fact that a lot of people still don't actually know fully what a tri-type is. They hear it and then they kind of think, oh, like I exhibit these types too. And like I was scrolling through Reddit the other day and someone had posted that their tri-type was that they were a 4-wing 3, a 7-wing 6, and couldn't figure out their last type. And even if you do believe in tri-types and you're using them correctly, the second 2 in your tri-type don't get wings. So there's still a lot of miscommunication, even if you do believe in tri-types. Lots of people still use it incorrectly. And so what tri-types came from is that there was originally Ichazo, and Ichazo helped teach Naranjo, and they kind of broke apart, and Naranjo kind of focused around the intelligence center as they are kind of now, and was kind of the founder of them, and he was much more earlier on in that development though. Ichazo said that we have what he called a trifix, which was one fixation from each intelligence center. And from there, Catherine and David, I don't know how to pronounce this last name, I think it's Fauve, and it's spelled Fauvre, turned Chaza's idea into tri-types. And we will later do an episode on what exactly tri-types are and our feelings around them. And I don't know how Caden will go about this, but I will give you information to use it correctly if you do want to use it correctly. I don't think that tri-types are very helpful. I will say that.
I don't know shit about tri-types. I think, well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm stealing your phrase. I've been trying to get through this Sufi Enneagram book. It's very confusing because I know nothing about Sufism, and also it's very dense and stuff. But there's a symbol on the front that's been redrawn. And this all goes to show that in the middle of that symbol is a 0. And the author of this book, I'm going to ridiculously do this name, so I don't know how to pronounce anything. Lale Bakhtiar. She has presented the idea of like the central point of the Enneagram is to like become a 0. She put a 0 at the center. That's the new thing, because the ways that we're interacting and interfacing with the world through your types is really a defense mechanism to cope with the fact that the world fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you give yourself more baggage to deal with? Bruh, it's fine. Just give yourself less baggage. It's easier.
Yes.
That's what I think. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that doesn't have anything.
Yeah. But yeah, a critical analysis of tri-types will come in. Forewarning, I will try and be as objective as possible, but I really disagree with tri-types. So if tri-types are your thing, I still recommend you listen to it because a lot of you are using them wrong anyway. So just check in. But that'll probably come, I don't know, probably next year, because this whole series is just going to take a year. But I kind of want to do an episode before the end of the year, so maybe you'll get lucky and get it.
You get a special.
Yeah, you might get a special. Depends on how irritated I become with Enneagram Redditors trying and failing to use tri-types.
It's not their fault. It's just that it's not very helpful to the overall goal. And maybe your goal of using the Enneagram is different from mine, but mine is always just like understanding why you're doing the things you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And self-improvement. I also think another problem with people jumping into tri-types is that they jump in way too soon, that they don't do the base work of like starting with your Enneagram type and then moving into your wing and like strengthening that and understanding that, and then understanding your instinct variance, because it's very much so your type affects you first, then you are influenced by your integration and disintegration points, and then you are influenced by your wing, and then you are influenced by your instinct variance, and then and only then, even if you do believe in tri-types, then and only then are you influenced by the other two fixations of the other two types, not their behaviors. So
well,
but anyway.
I just put in our episode notes, and we can put it in the notes of the whole episode too, a helpful little cone of emotions that my therapist sent me like a few months ago. And it essentially, there are a lot of different ways to conceptualize like what the different emotions are and how they're relating to each other in a graphic. But this one has a circle, and in the middle are the most intense of some of those key emotions: rage, vigilance, ecstasy, admiration, terror, amazement, grief, loathing. And then as you move out into the wings that sort of go up like a cone, it gets to the, sort of more surface level stuff, right? And I was specifically looking at the little anger cutout of this, right? And so at the deepest point, it's rage, and then it goes into anger, and then it goes up to annoyance. And then based on how it's laid out next to anticipation and disgust, or vigilance and loathing, as they are in their deepest centers, there's that sort of in between middle ground where it overlaps with your other emotions. And then in between annoyance and boredom, you get contempt. In between annoyance and interest, you get aggressiveness. And I thought it was a very interesting way to conceptualize how the different types within the body center experience that anger, because the aggressiveness for me feels very 8. Like they're kind of in that vigilance column, right? And that's a characteristic of how they are, so they get the aggressiveness. And then for ones, it's that contempt, and that's close to their loathing, which is self-loathing, but it comes off as loathing for other people as well. And then 9s are just kind of in the middle there, and then depending on your wing, you might dip into other ones, and you mostly repress it, and you manifest as just annoyance.
I really like this. I am going to put that graphic in our show notes. It reminds me of my emotion wheel. I might have to start using this.
We talk a lot at my workplace about, I mean, because I work in like the mentorship youth development field, we talk a lot about social emotional learning, and the idea that like you have to develop the skills for yourself, and then also when you're working with youth, obviously you have to develop their emotional skills, and one of them is self-awareness. And so having graphics that you can point to and use to conceptualize how you're feeling is a very, very key part of that. And then once you have that self-awareness, you can move on to gaining other social skills.
Yes. Okay. So, are you ready to move on to type 1s?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to now focus in on how the Body Intelligence Center focuses on each individual type. So we're going to start with type 1s. And so with every single intelligence center, in one of the 3 is going to be your internal one. One is going to be the external one, and one is going to be the disengaged / repressed one. So type 1s in the body triad are the internalized / denial type of their body. So type 1s internalize and repress their anger, not to the same point that a type 9 does it. Then type 1s tend to they don't like to express their anger externally and can be very self-critical and work very hard to hold back their unconscious impulses. Ones under-express their instincts. Ones repress their inner wants and instincts to a strict super ego-driven conscience. They restrict their own feelings and wants through self-control and inner boundary. And ones can maintain their autonomy by being perfect, being above criticism. They also seek autonomy from their own feelings and wants. When ones feel that they are losing their autonomy, their rage and aggression is directed inward through harsh self-criticisms. Sometimes they lose self-control and have outbursts of anger towards others.
I have a Naranjo quote here from his book Enneatype Structures. That's a little dense, but I think ties it back into what we were talking about earlier about the body type's sense of self. There is, in the life attitude of Enneatype 1, a loss of the sense of being, which, as is the case in these characters at the upper region of the Enneagram, manifests as a, quote, unconsciousness of unconsciousness, end quote, that gives them a particular self-satisfaction opposite to felt deficiency or to poverty of spirit of those at the bottom. So for ones, that unconsciousness of unconsciousness, he says, is converted into the hottest of the passions, which, however ignored by active unconsciousness, underlies the quality of interpersonal relationships. So that sense of being, the sense of autonomy that they seek to create, there is, even within that own action, a deficiency of self-awareness
Mhm.
of what that autonomy would look like, you know, like who
Yeah.
they are fundamentally. That means that a lot of ones won't acknowledge the fact that there's resentment or anger or judgment in any of their relationships, even with themselves.
Mhm. Interesting. So I think that plays into moving on to the challenges that the ones face, which is one's challenges are that they can be resentful, rigid, judgmental, non adaptive, and overly critical. And that all comes down to what we talked about with the autonomy and needing boundaries. They don't want to be adaptive because their boundaries are very internal and they've set up those internal boundaries of like, I won't do this.
Well,
And so they can't, yeah.
they've set up boundaries, but they've set up boundaries based on the morality of social structures. So they haven't actually set the boundaries. They've just taken on a lot of the, like, this is good, this is bad.
Mm-hmm. Which feeds into the judgmental and overly critical side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can try and impose their own boundaries, the walls that they have onto other people, which causes them to be overly critical and judgmental. And that's all about needing control over the environment, over themselves, and needing that autonomy. But type ones also have many strengths because of being in their body and their anger and stuff, which is they are honest, they are responsible, they are conscientious, they are hardworking, dependable, practical, and self-reliant.
Shall we move on to eights?
Yes, let's move on to eights. Eights are the external / display type of the body type. So type eights externalize and act out their anger. Type 8s tend to act out their anger and they express their anger very, very easily and rapidly. They put their guard up so that no one can get through their defenses and hurt them. Their anger commonly arises from situations where they or someone else experiences injustice. 8s overexpress their instinct. They act upon whatever gut hunches and powerful impulses arise. They feel that autonomy will come if they assert their wants aggressively and if they resist being influenced. They must remain in control. 8s extend their sphere of influence to include their families, their home, their workplace, etc. These expansive boundaries help them feel substantial and immortal. They may become confrontational to feel their boundaries. They also repress their gentler emotional side because it is seen as vulnerable. Ironically, 8s repress these instinctual qualities, or they repress their emotional instincts. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they act out and press against others. Their energy is very aggressive to maintain the boundaries that they've set in place and to maintain their autonomy. So, eights, challenges for the eights. They can be excessive, they can be angry, they can be dominating, lustful, and afraid of vulnerability. But they have strengths of being courageous, strong, fair, truthful, determined, generous, and protective of others. So
I found the quote that I was looking for. Sorry, I was meant to add in something earlier.
Okay.
But speaking of my new friend Naranjo,
Mm-hmm.
I'm using his book a lot today. But he points out there's the idealization of autonomy and a corresponding rejection of dependency. So it not necessarily that like eights actually enjoy being autonomous because they're really cutting themselves off for their feelings, but they have idealized what autonomy represents to them.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
All right. Did we cover strengths?
We did.
Okay.
So, yes, moving on. Type 9s. This is where it gets interesting. So
Great.
So type 9s disengage / repress. And so basically they're the most in their body. They're the most into their anger. But because they repress it so much, they're also the most removed from it and most disengaged. And that also, it kind of feeds into itself because they're never keeping it in check, and because they're disengaging and repressing, they're never really checking in with it, which allows it to like build up. And that's why they're experiencing it kind of the most. So Enneagram type 9 is in the body center, but it is the Enneagram type that is most disengaged with their body, not physically, but internally falling asleep to one's vitality. I really liked that quote because, I don't know, really ties into like the slothful and the sleep of the type 9. But yeah, so type 9s feel conflicted and disconnect with their anger. Type 9s are most out of touch with their anger, and they tend to disconnect from their anger and build harmony and comfort both internally and externally. They turn a blind eye to whatever threatens their peace. Their anger can be referred to as the anger that went to sleep. I really like that one too.
I used to get so, like, when I was a teenager, I would get so randomly angry when I was falling asleep at night, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, because all the stuff that I was getting angry about over the day, I wasn't dealing with the anger then, right? So I would go to bed, and as I was falling asleep, I'd be like, I really want to punch a fucking wall right now.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
So 9s are out of touch with their instinctual drives. 9s believe that expressing their views or asserting their needs will cause conflict or lack of harmony. 9s shut down most of their instincts by repressing and denying their own wants and needs. 9s try to maintain their autonomy by resisting change, both external pressures and passionate feelings. 9s often accommodate and go with the flow, a sense of giving up their own independence, but they do so with the agreement that with the agreement to give the 9 their own space to do their own thing. If they don't get that space, their underlying rage may come out in passive aggressive forms. And I just love that. Their underlying rage may come out in just passive aggression. But it's just utter rage.
There are lots of filters that things go through.
But yeah, and so this type 9s are in that the like triad of death, just this.
I think about it as like, you know, like the circle when your computer is loading, like the wheel of death. Like that's kind of how I think about because it all just goes around and around and around.
Yes. And so the reason being is that pretty much everyone through integration and disintegration will go to something that either internalizes or expresses one of the other intelligence centers. And also you have wings that can help balance you out. So for instance, as a 5, I have my 4 wing that helps me feel my emotions and is in one of the internal sides of that, right? I disintegrate and go further into myself, which kind of is where that becomes like a trap. But when I integrate, I go to 8 and get more in my body. So I have that kind of help. 9s, either wing, so 3, 6, and 9, their wings on either side are both the same body type. So they don't have the help of wings to get them to the other intelligence centers. And then when they integrate and disintegrate, they're going to the repression center of each type. So when they go to 6, so 9s, when they go to 6 in fear, they're still going to repressed fear and fear denial. And when they go to 3, they're going to repressed emotions and emotional denial.
Also, in just the way that triangle works, when you are reaching into the 8 in growth, you're reaching into the best parts of 8, which are taking from the best parts of 2, which are taking from the best parts. And you see like a kind of like you're getting a lot of other spices in the mix there. When I go into 3 in growth, I'm reaching into the best parts of 3, which are reaching from the best parts of 6. But I go to 6 in stress, so I'm taking the worst parts of 6. So it really kind of ends up in like a big incestuous pit of hell.
Yes.
Where it's hard to distinguish if you're integrating or disintegrating, or if you're changing at all.
And also with integration and disintegration, so this is something I learned, I forget what I was reading it. You only go, so for instance, if you are an unhealthy 9, you can only integrate to an unhealthy 3. You can't integrate, if you're a 9, you can't, if you're an unhealthy 9, you can't integrate to a healthy 3. And so you're taking the best factors from each level of health. So if you're integrating at an average level, you're getting a fair amount of like healthy qualities, and that are fine, but you're also still getting some of the
I have so many unhealthy 3 traits. I have so many image-based things that are just like, oh, why do you do that?
Yeah. So even when you're integrating and you are still taking some of the best parts, you're still not immune from the negatives of that type. And it's not a magic cure-all, like if I integrate, I'm in a healthier space. Not really. It's just you're using healthier coping mechanisms that aren't reestablishing the problem and such. So, but yeah, so that's why it's really hard for the 3, 6, and 9s to like fully integrate or fully use the other instinct variants, and it can be very hard for them to actually grow because of that, because they're, when they are going to these places, they're going to kind of the places that are still repressed.
I live in a land of oppression.
Yes. But yeah, so let's go into some challenges for the 9. 9s can be stubborn, ambivalent, self-forgetful, indecisive, and conflict avoidance. And that is to maintain their autonomy and to maintain the illusion of harmony. And that is what kind of creates the problem, is because it's not real harmony. Because in order to have real harmony, you need to have those conflicts and get them out and resolve them peacefully. Instead, you're living in this fake kind of harmony that you're trying to artificially create.
Right. Like the 8s have idealized autonomy and the 1s have idealized perfection, 9s have idealized harmony.
And so, yeah. But on the upside, 9s have excellent strengths related to their body and anger and needing that autonomy. And is that they're excellent mediators, because when the time comes, they will actually fix their environment and want to fix it correctly. They're caring and supportive. They are adaptive once they realize that change does need to happen. They're steady and they're receptive and they are non-judgmental.
Someone hire me for HR.
Yeah. That's basically what you were doing at that one point, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So just some advice for the Body Triad that I read. Instead of acting quickly based on your instinct and your gut, allow yourself to think first. Think about how your anger, which is likely the deep underlying cause of your instinctual reaction, affects you and those around you. So just when you go to do something and you think it may be passionate, just stop, take a breath. And just take a breath at first. Maybe you can still follow through with those actions even if they're bad, you know? You may have to apologize later, but just at first try and stop, analyze, and then go through. What you're focusing on here is the not just reacting. It's taking that second to breathe. And from there, you can kind of build up.
Practice mindfulness stops.
Practice those mindful stops. Just every now and then, just check in. Just do a check-in. Am I angry? How's my body? Like, am I just kind of in it? Or like, am I thinking about it? Let's just kind of, do those mindful check-ins.
what I've found helpful sometimes is well, I have a great partner and she'll ask me questions and I will respond just as a response, but not actually thinking about it. And she'll go, "Are you really okay with this? Or are you really not angry? Or are you really feeling this way?" And I'll have to actually stop and think. So maybe reminding people in your life who you interact with on a daily basis that sometimes you will answer things on a sort of based on your prior patterns of how you interact with stuff. And you might need a second follow-up question to say, "Hey, did you actually check in with yourself?"
Yeah. So that's all I've got for the body triad. Do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay, so let's just wrap on up. So for next month, we're going to be doing the heart and shame triad. So that's going to be 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And so our question of the month is specifically for that heart and shame triad. Again, 2, 3s, and 4s. And that is, what is your favorite unwritten rule?
This is gonna be so good.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Oh,
Yes. So
I have to go
yeah.
find heart people. I don't hang out with heart people.
I'll ask my partner.
Go
Let's
ahead.
see.
I'll ask my roommate.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's going to be what our next episode is about. Stay tuned for us fixing that 8 episode. That'll probably pop up soonish, depending on how good I'm feeling and how much I can squeeze out while I'm sick. But yeah, so email us EnneathingGoes@gmail.com or tweet at us at EnneathingGoes, same way it's spelled here.
Leave us a review
Mm-hmm.
on Apple Podcasts
Mm-hmm.
or other things. Are we on any other things that they can review? YouTube?
We're
Comments?
on YouTube. And the thing is, we're on so many now that I don't know. Like we keep getting updates. Like we're now on, what was it, Verbal? It's one I've never even heard of.
Oh,
But our hosting website just puts us on literally any platform. So whatever platform you're listening on, if you can review, please do. And also, if something happens with the audio,
let us know.
your list, let us know, because I can't believe that 150 some people listened to the Type 8 episode and just didn't say shit.
Just like Star Trek.
Maybe none of them got to that point. Maybe they all just checked out and were like, nah.
Our intros are too long.
Yeah, our intro's too long. They just left. No one got there. But yeah, so please, if something like that happens in the future, because the Type 8 episode, I think, was it our September or October episode?
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago, so it's been up like that, and I have no idea how long ago it was broke. I assume that it's been broken like that since it got uploaded. So please, if you hear it, let us know so we can fix it. Because once I upload it, like, I don't listen to it once it's been uploaded. I listen to the edit of it and just assume, probably unfairly, that
it's all fine.
That it's all fine. So maybe I need to start listening to it again. But the problem is, by the time I have...
You've listened to it for hours and hours at that point, though.
Yeah, because I've edited it. And so I've been, like, going through it, and I'm just kind of done. I'm like, okay, I've got my finished product. Yeah, it's fine. So I don't know. So someone, if you see something, say something. Use that PSA and help us. Okay. Bye.
Bye.